The park was unusually quiet that afternoon. The usual sounds of laughter and running feet were muted, probably because the weather was slightly colder than usual. A little girl walked slowly along the paved path, clutching a small worn backpack close to her chest. Her tiny shoes made soft scuffing sounds against the pavement, and her thin coat barely kept her warm. She moved with caution, as if every step took more effort than it should, her pale face revealing the exhaustion that came from days spent fighting her illness. She stopped near a bench under a large oak tree. Sitting alone was a man in a neatly tailored suit. His eyes stared at the ground and he looked distant, almost lost in thought. His hair was graying at the temples and a faint sadness seemed to weigh on his shoulders. The little girl hesitated, clutching her backpack straps tighter, but then took a deep breath. She had been taught to be brave, especially when she had something she wanted to ask. "Can I sit here?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The man looked up, startled. He wasn't used to children speaking to him out of the blue, especially not in such a gentle but direct manner. For a moment he just nodded, unsure of what to say. "Of course," he said finally, gesturing to the empty space beside him. The little girl carefully lowered herself onto the bench, keeping her backpack on her lap. She glanced at him shyly, then back at the path ahead, pretending to look at the trees but really observing him. There was something about him that felt different from the usual people she saw at the park. There was a quietness, a kind of loneliness that she could sense even without understanding it fully. The man cleared his throat and glanced at her. "You don't come here often, do you?" he asked, trying to start a conversation. The little girl shook her head. "Not really. I usually come after my doctor visits. My mom says fresh air helps." He nodded slowly, trying to find the right words. "I see, fresh air does help. It can be very calming." She tilted her head and looked at him, her eyes curious. "Are you sad?" she asked without hesitation. The question caught him off guard. He hadn't expected a child to notice his mood, much less ask about it. He studied her face, the way her eyes looked at him with innocent concern, the gentle tilt of her head, the way her tiny hands clutched her backpack as if it gave her courage. There was a purity in her observation that made him pause. "I suppose I am a little sad," he admitted finally. "Sometimes people just have days like that." She nodded thoughtfully. "I get sad sometimes too, but my mom says it's okay to feel sad. You just have to let it out." He smiled faintly. There was something refreshing about the simplicity of her words, a wisdom that seemed beyond her years. He hadn't expected comfort from a stranger, much less a child. "That's true," he said quietly. "It's important to let it out." For a while they sat in silence, the quietness around them making their small connection feel even more significant. The little girl fiddled with the zipper on her backpack, and he watched her with a gentle curiosity. Despite her small size and fragile appearance, there was a strength in her, an ability to face the world with courage that he found both humbling and inspiring. Eventually, she spoke again. "Do you want to hear a story?" He raised an eyebrow. "A story?" She nodded eagerly. "Yes, I like telling stories. It makes me happy." He felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of longing for something he had not realized he missed. "I'd like that very much," he said, settling back on the bench and giving her his full attention. She took a deep breath, her eyes lighting up. She told a simple story about a little bird who was afraid to fly, but eventually found the courage to soar through the sky. Her words were filled with innocence, yet there was a certain clarity in the way she described courage and hope. The man listened, captivated not just by the story but by the spirit of the child who told it. When she finished, she looked at him expectantly. "Did you like it?" He smiled genuinely, a rare expression that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. "I liked it very much. It reminded me that even small things can be powerful." She beamed, her smile lighting up her pale face. For a moment, the weight of her illness and the heaviness in his heart seemed to lift, replaced by a simple connection between two strangers who had found each other at just the right time. The man glanced at his watch and realized he had spent much more time than he intended on the bench. But instead of feeling rushed, he felt a sense of calm he hadn't known in years. "I should probably be going soon," he said, though he was reluctant. The little girl looked down at her backpack, fidgeting with the straps. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked hesitantly. He paused, considering her request. Something in her hopeful eyes stirred something in him he hadn't felt in a long time. "Yes," he said finally. I'll come back tomorrow." Her face lit up with joy, and she gave him a small, shy wave before gathering her strength to continue her walk. He watched her go, noticing how her steps were slower than most children, yet each one seemed determined, purposeful. As he sat alone again, he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had begun with a single question. "Can I sit here?" He thought about the courage it must have taken for a sick little girl to approach a stranger, and how a simple act of kindness had created a bond neither of them had expected. The next day, he returned to the same spot hoping to see her again, and there she was, waiting as if she knew he would come. The small connection that began yesterday continued to grow, a quiet friendship forming in the most unexpected of ways. Each conversation, each shared moment, brought them closer, revealing the gentle, human truth that sometimes the smallest gestures can create the strongest bonds. Over the following days, he learned more about her life, about her illness, her hospital visits, and the little joys that kept her going. She, in turn, learned about his life, about the loss he had endured and the emptiness that wealth and success could not fill. Their interactions were simple but profound, filled with moments of laughter, shared stories, and the comfort of understanding one another without judgment. In those moments on the bench under the old oak tree, two strangers found solace in each other. One was small and fragile but filled with hope and courage. The other was powerful in the world but carrying invisible wounds. Together they began to heal, proving that human connection could bridge any gap no matter how vast. By the end of that first week, it was clear that their meeting was no coincidence. A sick little girl and a widowed CEO millionaire, worlds apart in every way, had found each other through a simple question and a willingness to care. And neither of them would ever forget how a small act of bravery and kindness could change the course of their lives forever. The next morning, the man arrived at the park a little earlier than usual. He found the little girl already sitting on the same bench, her tiny backpack by her side and her legs swinging slightly as she waited. She looked up and smiled when she saw him, her eyes bright despite the pale color of her face. "Good morning," he said gently, sitting down beside her. He could feel a strange warmth spreading in his chest, a feeling he hadn't felt in years. "Good morning," she replied softly, her voice full of hope. "Did you sleep well?" He chuckled lightly. "Better than I have in a long time. I think I slept thinking about coming back here." She nodded thoughtfully, as if that made perfect sense. They began to talk again, but this time their conversations grew longer and more personal. She told him about her favorite books and the drawings she had made in her sketchbook, which she often carried in her backpack. He admired her talent and curiosity, asking questions and genuinely listening. It was rare for him to feel such unhurried attention, to feel truly present in someone else's world. She, in turn, asked about his life. "Do you work all the time?" she asked innocently. He sighed. "I do spend a lot of time working. Sometimes it feels like there's always something to do, and I forget to enjoy the little things." She nodded as if she understood, then tilted her head. "Do you like what you do?" He thought for a moment. "I used to. But after my wife passed away, everything seemed a little less bright. The work still matters, but it doesn't make me happy the way it used to." She reached over and lightly touched his arm, a small gesture of comfort. "I think happiness isn't in work or money," she said softly. "It's in people who care about you." Her words struck him deeply. He realized that this small, sick little girl who had her own battles understood something about life he had forgotten long ago. Over the next few days, the man started noticing little changes in himself. He began to take more walks outside of work, just to come to the park and sit with her. He would bring small treats, cookies, fruit, or a tiny toy sometimes, and she would beam at him, a joy so pure it made him forget all his worries. She shared stories of her hospital visits, the procedures, the nurses, and sometimes the pain. He listened, never offering pity, just understanding. He found himself drawn into her world, feeling protective and inspired by her courage. Each story she told painted a picture of bravery, resilience, and hope that he admired deeply. The man began to open up more as well. He told her about his wife, how kind she was, and how he missed her every day. He talked about the loneliness he felt in his big house and how work could never fill that space. The girl listened with her innocent wisdom, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just nodding, as if she understood more than her years would suggest. One afternoon, as they sat together under the oak tree, she asked quietly, "Do you ever get scared of being alone?" He looked down at her, moved by the simple, direct question. "Yes, I do. Sometimes it feels very heavy, but then meeting you has made it lighter. I don't feel as alone when you're here." She smiled faintly, her small hand brushing against his. This small gesture became routine. They would sit together after her doctor visits, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments. The man noticed how her face would light up when she saw him, and he felt a growing responsibility and joy in being someone she could count on. He also began to notice the changes in her. Despite her illness, she seemed stronger in spirit, more cheerful. She laughed more freely, her eyes sparkling with a light that he hadn't seen before. Her small victories, finishing a story, drawing a picture, taking a longer walk, became celebrations they shared together. One day she asked him if he could teach her something. "Teach me something that you know really well," she said earnestly. He thought about it and realized that he had knowledge of the world, of people, of life, that could help her see beyond her current struggles. He began teaching her small lessons about patience, about observing people, about kindness. Each lesson was simple but meaningful, and she absorbed it eagerly. He also shared some of his favorite childhood memories, stories of adventure, and moments of joy. She listened intently, sometimes asking questions, sometimes laughing, sometimes just hugging her knees and thinking. The man realized that in teaching her he was learning again, about the value of small things, about the importance of attention and care. Their bond grew not just through words, but through presence. The little girl began to see him as a protector, a friend, someone who cared deeply. He saw her as a beacon of hope, a reminder of life's resilience and the power of human connection. Each day together was a gentle push against the loneliness and sorrow they both carried. One afternoon, the little girl looked at him seriously. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," he said, leaning closer. "Do you ever wish things could be different? That maybe life wasn't so hard sometimes?" He thought about it and nodded slowly. "Yes, I think everyone wishes for that at some point. But I've learned that even when life is hard, there can be moments that make it beautiful. Moments like sitting here with you." Her eyes softened, and for the first time she reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. "I like sitting with you too," she whispered. He felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of connection that went deeper than words. It was more than friendship. It was a mutual understanding, a bond formed through shared vulnerability, trust, and simple human kindness. The days passed, and their routine became a source of stability for both of them. She knew that no matter what the day brought, he would be there. And he knew that her courage and spirit reminded him of the things he had almost forgotten. The simple joys, the quiet connections, the power of caring for someone. Through these shared moments, both began to heal in ways they hadn't expected. He found laughter returning to his life, a lightness he hadn't felt since before his loss. She found strength in someone believing in her, in someone offering consistent care and attention, giving her a sense of normalcy despite her illness. In the evenings after leaving the park, he would think about her bravery, about the small lessons she had taught him without knowing. And she, lying in her bed at home, would clutch her stuffed toy and smile, thinking about the next time she would see him. Their friendship had become a lifeline, a quiet force that shaped their days in subtle but profound ways. By the end of the second week, it was clear that their bond was no longer just a chance meeting. It was a relationship built on trust, empathy, and the simple human need to be seen and understood. Each shared story, each laugh, each quiet moment added layers to their connection, proving that even the smallest gestures could transform lives and bring light to even the darkest days. And as they sat together, watching the sun filter through the leaves of the old oak tree, both the little girl and the man knew, without needing to say it aloud, that they had found something rare, a friendship that would change both of their lives forever. The following week brought a gentle change to their routine. The little girl had begun to wait for him eagerly, her excitement barely contained as she clutched her backpack tightly. The man arrived at the park a little earlier than usual, carrying a small paper bag with a few treats he thought she might like. He spotted her instantly, sitting on the same old bench, her small figure framed by the sprawling branches of the oak tree. She waved as soon as she saw him, and he felt a warmth that he had not felt in a very long time. "Good morning," he said, taking a seat beside her. She responded with a wide smile, showing the gap where a baby tooth had recently fallen out. "Good morning," she replied cheerfully. "I saved you a seat," he chuckled softly. "Thank you. I'm glad I have a spot saved for me." There was something in the simplicity of her words that made him realize how rare it was to feel needed and anticipated. They spent the morning talking about ordinary things, what the clouds looked like, the shapes in the trees, the little birds hopping along the path. She pointed out a squirrel and named it, much to his amusement. He realized that in her presence, even the smallest observations became moments of joy. After a few minutes, he reached into the paper bag and pulled out a small packet of cookies. "I thought you might like these," he said, offering it to her. Her eyes widened with delight. "Oh, thank you," she said, taking them carefully. "You remembered what I like," he smiled. "Of course. I always try to remember important things." As they shared the treats, she began to talk about her week, her small victories, and the challenges she faced at home and at the hospital. She spoke candidly about her fear of needles and how some days felt heavy and painful. He listened quietly, offering reassurance with a gentle tone, never pitying her, only respecting her courage. "I don't like the hospital sometimes," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But I try to be brave." He nodded thoughtfully. "You are brave, more than most people I know." Her small chest puffed out with pride, and she smiled. "Really? You think I am brave?" He leaned down slightly and looked into her eyes. "Absolutely. Bravery isn't just about fighting monsters or doing big things. Sometimes it's about facing the day, even when it's hard. You do that every day?" She considered his words carefully, her face serious for a moment before she broke into a small grin. "I like that. I think I'll try to be braver every day." The man felt a gentle tug at his heart. He realized that her resilience and honesty were slowly changing him too. He had spent years focused on work and achievements, often forgetting the simple acts of courage and kindness that defined a meaningful life. She reminded him of those things every day. As the morning passed, they decided to walk along the park path together. She held his hand lightly, matching her small steps to his longer strides. He found himself talking more openly than he had in years, sharing memories of his wife, the joys they had shared, and the deep sorrow that followed her passing. She listened quietly, occasionally asking questions, never judging, always present. One afternoon, she asked him a question that made him pause. "Do you ever get lonely?" He looked down at her small face, her eyes wide and curious. "Yes," he admitted. "Even when I am surrounded by people, sometimes I feel very alone." She nodded solemnly. "I know that feeling too. I think everyone feels lonely sometimes, but it's nicer when you find someone who cares." Her words resonated deeply with him. In that moment, he realized that their friendship was healing parts of him that he hadn't even acknowledged. Her courage, innocence, and honesty were teaching him about love, patience, and the importance of emotional connection. Over the next few days, he started to notice small changes in her. Despite her illness, she seemed more confident and cheerful. She laughed freely, her eyes sparkling with a light that had been dimmed by fear and pain. Her small achievements, drawing a detailed picture, telling a complete story, or finishing a puzzle, became celebrations they shared together. He also began to notice changes in himself. He found himself looking forward to the mornings, eager to see her smile. Work still demanded his attention, but it no longer consumed his thoughts entirely. He had discovered a joy that could not be measured in wealth or success, a joy born from simple human connection. One day, they sat on the bench as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden light across the park. She leaned against him slightly and whispered, "Do you think we can always be friends?" He felt a lump in his throat, overcome by emotion. "Yes," he said quietly. "I want to be your friend for a very long time." Her small hand squeezed his, and she smiled. "Me too." The weeks that followed deepened their bond. He began sharing small life lessons, teaching her about patience, kindness, and understanding others. She absorbed every word, her curiosity insatiable. In return, she taught him to appreciate the simple moments, watching clouds drift, listening to birds sing, or just sitting quietly under the oak tree. Their connection did not go unnoticed. Park visitors would sometimes see them together and comment on the unlikely friendship. He didn't mind the attention. He was too focused on the little girl, on the joy she brought him and the life lessons she unknowingly imparted. One rainy afternoon, she arrived in a small raincoat, her tiny umbrella barely covering her. He held an umbrella over both of them as they walked along the wet paths. She laughed as raindrops fell on her cheeks, and he laughed too, the sound rare and genuine. It was a small moment, but it encapsulated the essence of their bond, finding happiness in ordinary things together. As the month went on, their conversations grew deeper. She shared her dreams, small and large, about traveling, reading stories, and one day feeling strong enough to walk without fear. He shared his regrets and hopes, showing her that even adults struggled but could find courage too. One afternoon, she asked him if he had ever been scared to try something new. He nodded, recalling moments when fear had held him back. Yes, many times. But sometimes trying is better than avoiding. You learn more and you grow stronger. She thought about that, then whispered, "I want to be brave like that." He smiled, feeling a swell of pride. "You already are. Every day you are brave." Their routine, their friendship became a source of stability and comfort. She knew that no matter what the hospital visits brought, he would be there. He knew that no matter what the challenges of his life, she reminded him of what truly mattered, the warmth of human connection, the value of patience and care, and the small joys that life offers every day. By the end of the month, it was clear that their bond had become indispensable to both of them. She was no longer just a sick little girl who needed comfort. She was a source of inspiration, teaching him about resilience, hope, and the beauty of small, consistent acts of kindness. And he was no longer just a lonely man of wealth. He was a friend, protector, and mentor, learning to feel and care deeply again. As they sat together one late afternoon, watching the sun set through the oak trees, both felt a quiet certainty. This was not a fleeting friendship, not a temporary connection. It was something profound, built on mutual trust, understanding, and love. And even in the quiet moments, the shared smiles and soft words, they knew their lives had changed forever, for the better, because they had found each other. The following week, the man noticed something different in the little girl. There was a quiet determination in her eyes, a new courage that seemed to have grown from the many days they had spent together. She still looked frail and tired at times, but her spirit seemed stronger, and he could see it reflected in the way she moved and spoke. He realized that their time together was more than just companionship. It was creating real change in her, and he felt a deep sense of pride and responsibility. One morning, she arrived at the park with a small envelope in her hand. She held it tightly, hesitating before approaching the bench where he was sitting. He looked up and smiled gently, sensing that something important was about to happen. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," she replied, her voice a little shaky. She handed him the envelope. "I made this for you." He took it carefully, noticing the slightly crooked edges and the small, careful handwriting. Opening it, he found a drawing she had made of the two of them sitting under the oak tree, smiling at each other. It was simple, but it captured the warmth and connection they had built. "This is wonderful," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." She smiled shyly, her cheeks turning slightly pink. "I wanted you to know that you make me happy." He was deeply touched. For the first time in years, he felt that someone had made him feel truly appreciated and loved for who he was, not for what he had. "You make me happy too," he admitted quietly. That day, he decided to take a step further. He wanted to do something meaningful for her, something that would brighten her life beyond the small moments they shared. He began quietly planning, thinking about what she had mentioned in passing, the small dreams she had, the things she wished she could do but couldn't because of her illness. He wanted to give her a chance to experience joy without limitations. Over the next few days, he subtly began setting things in motion. He contacted a few people who could help arrange a special day for her, a visit to a place she had always wanted to see, activities that would bring her happiness and give her a sense of normal childhood experiences. He did all of this quietly, without making it a big deal, wanting the surprise to be genuine and heartfelt. Meanwhile, their daily meetings continued. She talked about school, her friends, and the hospital, sharing her hopes and fears. He listened, offering guidance and reassurance, and sometimes just sharing in her laughter. Their bond had grown so much that even a simple conversation could lift the spirits of both of them. One afternoon, she noticed him looking thoughtful. "Are you okay?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Yes, I'm just thinking about something important." She tilted her head. "Are you thinking about me?" He chuckled lightly. "Maybe a little. I'm thinking about how I can make your days happier." Her eyes lit up with curiosity. "How?" He smiled, not revealing too much. "That's a surprise. You'll see soon." The anticipation added a new layer of excitement to their interactions. She began to talk about what she would do if she could have a special day, and he listened closely, storing every detail in his mind. He realized that these small moments, her innocent dreams and desires, were just as important as any achievement in his world. Finally, the day came. He arrived at the park early, carrying a small backpack of supplies and a carefully hidden map of the day's adventure. When she saw him, her face lit up and she could hardly contain her excitement. "What are we doing today?" she asked eagerly. He knelt down to her level. "Today we're going on an adventure. A special day just for you." Her eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," he confirmed, smiling. "But you have to promise to keep an open mind and have fun." She nodded eagerly and they set off together, walking hand in hand. The day was filled with small surprises, places she had dreamed of visiting, activities she had wanted to try, and moments of laughter that echoed through the air. He watched her eyes sparkle as she experienced new things, felt her joy in every step, and knew that this was exactly what he wanted to do for her. At one point, they stopped for a picnic in a quiet spot and she turned to him, her face serious. "Thank you for this. I didn't think I could ever have a day like this." He felt a lump in his throat. "You deserve every bit of it, more than anyone I know." As the day went on, he realized that the act of giving her joy was transforming him as well. He had spent so many years focused on work, wealth, and obligations, but this simple act of caring for someone else's happiness brought a fulfillment he had never known. He felt lighter, happier, and more connected to the world around him. By the evening, they returned to the park bench under the oak tree, tired but exhilarated. She leaned against him, her small hand in his, and whispered, "This was the best day ever." He smiled, his heart full. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." "I enjoyed it too." From that day on, their bond deepened even further. She began to trust him not just as a friend, but as someone who truly cared for her well-being. He found in her a source of inspiration and renewal, a reminder of the joy that life could hold even amidst hardship. Over the following weeks, he continued to find ways to support her, both emotionally and practically. He arranged small surprises, helped her with school projects, and even accompanied her to the hospital to provide comfort. She flourished under his care, her laughter and energy returning in ways that brightened the lives of everyone around her. Through these experiences, he discovered that true happiness was not in wealth or status, but in the connections we make, the kindness we show, and the joy we bring to others. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a drive to continue making a positive difference in her life. One quiet afternoon, as they sat on the bench watching the sunset, she turned to him and said softly, "I don't want this to end. I want us to always be friends." He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the same sentiment. "We will always be friends," he promised. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." She smiled, her small hand squeezing his. "I'll always be here too." In that moment, they both understood the depth of their connection. It was more than friendship. It was a bond that would endure, built on trust, love, and the shared experiences that had brought them together. They had found something rare and precious in each other, and they knew that their lives had been forever changed by the simple act of kindness that had begun months ago with a single question. "Can I sit here?" As the evening grew darker and the park emptied, they remained on the bench, sharing quiet laughter and gentle conversation. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them in the profound understanding that they had found something truly special. And in that understanding, both felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that they had discovered a friendship that would withstand time, distance, and the challenges of life. The weeks passed, and the little girl's health began to show subtle improvements. It was not dramatic, but the changes were visible. Her laughter came more easily, her cheeks held a hint of color, and her energy seemed renewed. The man noticed every small shift, each one a testament to her courage and resilience. He also realized that her presence in his life had reshaped him in ways he could never have predicted. The loneliness he had carried for years had softened, replaced by a quiet contentment and purpose. One sunny morning, she arrived at the park earlier than usual. Her backpack seemed lighter, and she carried a small notebook filled with drawings and stories she had written over the past weeks. Her eyes sparkled as she spotted him sitting on their familiar bench reading a book. "Good morning," she called out, her voice full of energy. He looked up, smiling warmly. "Good morning. I see someone has been busy." She ran up to the bench, dropping her notebook on his lap. "Look, I finished all my stories. Will you read them?" He flipped through the pages carefully, taking in her colorful illustrations and heartfelt words. Each story reflected her imagination, courage, and the small yet profound lessons she had learned about life. He read them aloud as she watched, her face lighting up with pride and anticipation. "These are wonderful," he said, genuinely impressed. "You have a real talent. I hope you never stop writing and drawing." Her smile widened and she leaned closer. "I won't. I want to make people happy with my stories." He nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. She had grown so much, not just in skill but in spirit. She was becoming stronger, braver, and more determined to embrace life despite her illness. He felt proud and humbled to witness her growth and to be a part of her journey. Days turned into weeks, and their bond continued to deepen. The man had arranged small surprises for her, from visits to her favorite places to quiet moments of joy that brought light to her days. Each gesture was designed to make her feel valued, cherished, and seen. He had come to realize that his wealth and status were meaningless without these connections, without the ability to touch another life in a meaningful way. One afternoon, as they sat under the oak tree, she looked at him seriously. "Do you think I can really get better?" He took her small hand in his and held it gently. "I believe in you. You are strong, brave, and full of hope. I know you can face anything that comes your way." Her eyes filled with determination. "Then I will try my hardest. I want to be strong." He smiled, feeling a profound sense of hope. Their connection had become a source of strength for both of them, a mutual support system that transcended age, wealth, and circumstance. The little girl's improvement inspired him to take further steps. He quietly arranged for better medical care, connecting with doctors who could provide the attention and treatment she needed. He did this without making it a grand gesture, simply because he wanted her to have the best chance at a healthy life. She never knew all the details, but she felt the effects in her daily life. The visits were smoother, the care more attentive, and her spirits higher than they had been in months. One evening, after a long day of hospital visits and park time, they sat on their bench, watching the sun set in hues of orange and gold. She leaned against him, her small head resting on his shoulder. "Thank you for everything," she whispered. "I don't know what I would have done without you." He felt a tear slip down his cheek. "You have given me so much too. You've reminded me what it means to care, to hope, and to love without expecting anything in return. You have changed my life." Her small hand squeezed his tightly. "I'm glad. I want to always make people happy. Even when I'm sick, I want to bring joy." He looked down at her, moved by her selflessness and wisdom. "You already do. Every day." As the weeks went on, their routine became a source of stability and joy. She knew that no matter what challenges came, he would be there, offering support, laughter, and guidance. He knew that she reminded him of life's most precious lessons, the value of kindness, the power of resilience, and the importance of connection. One special afternoon, he surprised her with a small celebration in the park. He had brought a picnic with her favorite foods, some small decorations, and a few friends who had volunteered to help create a cheerful atmosphere. She arrived at the bench, her eyes wide with wonder and delight. "Is all this for me?" she asked, her voice trembling with excitement. He nodded, smiling. "Yes, you deserve to be celebrated. For your bravery, your courage, and your beautiful heart." Tears filled her eyes as she looked around, taking in the decorations, the laughter, and the thoughtful gestures. "Thank you. This is the best day ever." They spent the afternoon enjoying the simple joys of life, eating together, laughing, and sharing stories. The little girl's energy and happiness were infectious, drawing smiles from everyone around. He watched her closely, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that he had played a part in bringing light into her life. As the sun began to set, they returned to their favorite bench under the oak tree. She leaned against him, her small hand in his, and whispered, "I feel so happy. Thank you for always being here." He looked down at her, tears glistening in his eyes. And I will always be here, no matter what. In that moment, they both understood the profound depth of their bond. It was not just friendship or companionship. It was a connection that had transformed both of their lives. She had found a source of support, love, and guidance, and he had rediscovered joy, hope, and purpose through her presence. Their story had begun with a simple question, "Can I sit here?" and had grown into something extraordinary, a bond that transcended age, wealth, and circumstance. They had learned from each other, grown with each other, and found comfort and inspiration in one another's company. As the evening settled in, the park quieted, and the shadows of the trees stretched long across the ground, they sat together in peaceful silence. Each small gesture, each shared smile, each moment of care had created a tapestry of connection and love that would endure long after the days in the park had passed. The man knew that life would continue to bring challenges, and the little girl knew that she would face more battles ahead. But together they had discovered a truth that would remain with them forever, that kindness, empathy, and love could change lives in ways no wealth or success ever could. And in the quiet comfort of that oak tree bench, they both felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that their hearts had found a lasting home in each other's presence. The story ended not with a grand finale, but with a simple, lasting truth, that human connection, no matter how unexpected or unlikely, could heal wounds, spark courage, and bring joy beyond measure. And for the little girl and the man, that truth would guide them through every day to come, a testament to the power of a simple act of kindness and the enduring magic of friendship and love. The little girl and the man had shared so many moments together that they had begun to feel inseparable. Each morning she would arrive at the park and he would be waiting, always ready with a smile and a kind word. Their friendship had become a cornerstone in both of their lives, bringing a sense of stability and joy that neither had expected. One morning, as the leaves turned golden with the arrival of autumn, she ran to the bench, her small backpack bouncing with each step. He greeted her with his usual warmth, noticing immediately the excitement in her eyes. "Good morning," she exclaimed, almost out of breath. "I have something to show you." He raised an eyebrow with a smile. "Oh, what is it?" She opened her backpack and pulled out a small book she had been working on in secret. Its pages were filled with drawings and short stories, each one more imaginative than the last. She had written them all herself, inspired by the adventures they had shared. "I want you to read it," she said eagerly. "You're the first person to see it." He took the book carefully, flipping through the pages, impressed by her creativity and dedication. Each story was filled with courage, hope, and the kind of innocence that touched the heart deeply. He began to read aloud, watching her face light up with each page. "These are incredible," he said when he finished. "You have such a gift and I'm so proud of you." Her cheeks turned a soft pink and she hugged the book to her chest. "Thank you. You inspired me. All the adventures we had, I wanted to put them in my stories." He felt a warmth in his chest, realizing that their shared experiences had created something lasting and meaningful. He remembered the first day they had met, how fragile and timid she had seemed, and marveled at the growth he had witnessed. The days continued, filled with laughter, stories, and quiet companionship. He had come to see her not only as a friend, but as a source of inspiration. Her courage in the face of illness reminded him of the power of resilience and hope. She, in turn, found comfort and confidence in his steady presence, someone who believed in her and celebrated her victories no matter how small. One chilly afternoon, as they sat on the bench under their oak tree, she looked at him with a serious expression. "Do you think people can really change?" He considered her question carefully. "Yes," he said finally. "People can change, especially when they find someone who believes in them and supports them. You've changed me in ways I never thought possible." Her small hand reached for his, squeezing it gently. "I'm glad. You've helped me be braver too." He smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Their friendship had become a source of mutual growth, a reminder that caring for someone else could transform your own life as much as theirs. The man had continued to arrange small surprises for her, moments that brought joy and wonder into her life. One day he took her to a small animal sanctuary she had dreamed of visiting. She ran from pen to pen, laughing as she fed goats, petted rabbits, and watched birds soar overhead. The joy on her face was contagious, and he found himself laughing freely, a sound that had become rare in his life. Afterward, they sat under a tree, sharing a picnic he had packed. She looked at him with gratitude and happiness, her eyes shining. "I can't believe this is real," she said softly. "It's better than I ever imagined." He reached over, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "You deserve all of it. You've shown so much courage and strength." Over time, he realized that their bond had become something rare and extraordinary. It wasn't just friendship. It was a deep connection built on trust, empathy, and shared experiences. She had brought light into his life, healing wounds he hadn't even known were there. He had given her hope, joy, and the belief that life could still be beautiful despite hardships. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, they sat quietly on the bench, the world around them hushed. She leaned against him, her small head resting on his shoulder. "Do you think we'll always be friends?" He wrapped an arm gently around her. "Yes," he said softly. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." Tears welled in her eyes and she squeezed his hand. "I'll always be here too." The little girl's health had improved steadily and the doctors were optimistic. He had continued to support her, providing not just care but encouragement, love, and understanding. Their relationship had become a lifeline, a source of strength that neither would ever forget. As the days grew cooler and the leaves turned crisp, they continued their routine. Each day a new adventure filled with laughter, learning, and connection. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more hopeful about the future. He had found purpose, joy, and a renewed sense of meaning in his life. One special morning, he brought a small telescope and set it up near their bench. "I thought we could look at the stars," he said. "It's a big sky out there and there's so much to see." Her eyes widened in excitement. "Stars! I've never looked at them this close." He guided her as she peered through the telescope, pointing out constellations and sharing stories about them. She listened with rapt attention, her small hands gripping his for balance. The experience was magical, a quiet reminder that there was wonder in the world beyond their everyday lives. As night fell, they sat together, watching the stars twinkle above. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, feeling safe and cherished. He held her gently, feeling a profound gratitude for the bond they shared. In that moment, the worries of the world seemed distant and small, overshadowed by the warmth of friendship and love. The man realized that their journey had been extraordinary. From the first hesitant question, "Can I sit here?" to the many days of shared laughter, stories, and adventures, they had built something lasting and beautiful. It was a reminder that the smallest acts of kindness, the simplest gestures of care, could change lives in ways unimaginable. As they walked home that night, hand in hand, he knew that their bond would endure. They had faced challenges together, celebrated victories, and learned from each other. The little girl had taught him about courage, hope, and the power of human connection. He had given her support, care, and the reassurance that she was never alone. In the quiet of their shared moments, they had discovered a truth that would guide them forever. That love, kindness, and friendship could heal, inspire, and transform lives. And as the stars shone above, both felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that they had found in each other a friendship that would last a lifetime. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between the little girl and the man grew stronger, more profound, and more comforting. Every morning she would run toward the park bench, her backpack bouncing with excitement. He would always be there, waiting, smiling, ready to hear about her latest thoughts, stories, or adventures. They had created a world together, a safe and joyful space where they could share openly without fear, judgment, or sorrow. One bright morning, she approached him with a gleam in her eyes that made him curious. "I have a surprise for you today," she said, practically bursting with excitement. He smiled, intrigued. "Oh, what kind of surprise?" She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small stack of hand-drawn tickets. Each one had colorful designs and playful lettering. "I made tickets for an adventure," she exclaimed. "You're invited," he chuckled, holding the tickets gently. "Well, I feel honored. Where is this adventure taking us?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "You'll see." They followed a winding path through the park, the autumn leaves crunching under their feet. She led him to a quiet corner near a small pond, where she had arranged a tiny picnic with snacks, blankets, and some handmade decorations. The thoughtfulness and creativity she had put into this surprised him, and he felt deeply touched by the gesture. As they settled down on the blankets, she began to explain each ticket. which represented a different activity or game she had planned. From a scavenger hunt to storytelling sessions and even a small art project, every detail was carefully designed to create joy and laughter. Her energy and enthusiasm were contagious, and he found himself laughing more freely than he had in years. During one part of the adventure, they paused to watch ducks swim across the pond. She leaned against him and whispered, "I love days like this. I feel like nothing bad can touch me when I'm with you." He hugged her gently. "That's how it should feel. You deserve to feel safe, happy, and loved." Throughout the day, he noticed how much she had grown, not only in confidence but in her ability to find joy despite her illness. She laughed at the smallest things, cheered for herself when she accomplished tasks, and even comforted him when he shared a quiet worry or thought. Their bond was a mutual support system, lifting them both in ways that neither had anticipated. After the picnic, they walked slowly through the park, taking in the crisp air and the golden leaves. She took his hand, holding it tightly as if to make sure he didn't leave. He held her hand back, feeling a profound sense of connection and purpose. Their relationship had become something rare, built on trust, understanding, and a love that went beyond words. One evening, as the sun set in a tapestry of oranges and pinks, they sat together under their oak tree, sharing a quiet moment. She looked up at him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think people can really change?" He smiled, recalling the journey they had both been on. "Yes. I think people can change, especially when they find someone who believes in them and supports them. You've changed me in ways I never thought possible." She smiled, a soft, proud smile. "And you've helped me be braver. I want to keep being strong even when things get hard." He held her hand, feeling the warmth and strength she exuded despite her small frame. "You are already strong. Every day you show courage, and it inspires me and everyone around you." Their conversations often drifted toward dreams and hopes. She spoke about places she wanted to visit, stories she wanted to write, and experiences she longed to have. He listened, encouraged her, and even began planning small ways to make those dreams a reality. Every shared story, every laugh, every quiet moment together strengthened the bond between them. One chilly afternoon, he surprised her with tickets to a small theater performance she had mentioned wanting to see. She was overjoyed, her excitement uncontainable. They spent the day enjoying the play, laughing and sharing whispered comments. The joy in her eyes was unmistakable, and he felt a profound sense of fulfillment knowing that he had brought her happiness. After the show, they walked through the quiet streets, the little girl holding his hand tightly. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for today. It was amazing. I never knew life could feel this wonderful." He smiled softly, feeling a lump in his throat. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. You deserve every moment of happiness." As the weeks continued, he saw even more changes in her. Her laughter was more frequent. Her confidence had grown, and her resilience was evident in everything she did. She faced challenges with courage, and he was always there to support her, guiding her gently, celebrating her victories, and comforting her when needed. One afternoon, they sat under the oak tree, the sunlight filtering through the branches. She turned to him with a small, serious expression. "Do you think I can really make a difference in the world?" He took her small hands in his. "Absolutely. Even the smallest acts of kindness and courage can create ripples that touch many lives. You already inspire people just by being yourself." Her face lit up with hope and determination.